Hello, welcome to Saturday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And on screen, I think we have one of the most beautiful puzzles that we've ever shown on the channel. This is called Thermonuclear Power Plant, and it's by Alice. Alice always seems to make very beautiful puzzles. In fact, I remember her solution to Kurt Hugo Schneider's irregular 6x6, and that was also extremely pretty. This is, let me show you what she sent in. This is her version of what I've managed to create in our software. Now I realise I have not done it justice. I did do my best, but there you go. There's the plant in the centre, and the graphics outside the grid. Well, I did my best. I really did. And I'll tell you the rules in just a second. A couple of things to mention. First, for those of you who enjoy the crossword content, we're going to put up a video Mark's made on Matt Gaffney's crosswords, which are very, very good fun. They always have a little bit of a meta at the end of them, and Mark's recorded a video which we'll put up free on Patreon for you guys. Today, I hope, if I get time to do it. Also free on Patreon. I'm not sure whether this will go up today, more likely tomorrow. I'm going to put up a pretty amazing video that Christoph Seeliger has made for us. Now, Christoph is one of the best constructors of puzzles in the world. And one of the questions we get asked most often on the channel is how do the best compilers go about setting these amazing variants that we're able to show on the channel? And Christoph actually took the time to record himself creating a Thermo Sudoku. That Thermo Sudoku is actually available now. It's on Logic Masters Germany. And the process of creating that is a very long video. I think it's a 3-hour video, and I might cut it into sections so that it's easier to upload. Yeah, we're gonna put that for you guys freely available on Patreon, so that any of you who want to become constructors can see how an expert goes about setting. Yeah, which I think it's a seriously interesting video. Now let's get back to this. Now, why did I decide to do Alice's puzzle today? Well, Alice created StarCraft Sudoku, which appeared on the channel a couple of months ago, and it was one of my favourite variations because I am an obsessive StarCraft, well, not player anymore. I used to be an obsessive player, but I'm now an obsessive watcher. And the biggest sort of tournament in StarCraft is Code S, and it's the Code S finals today. They happened in Korea earlier on, TY versus Cure. I do not know the result. I do not want to know the result, so please do not tell me in the comments. I'm going to watch the VODs later on. And enjoy that, and I probably want TY to win. I think he deserves a championship for any of you who are interested. My only other interesting bit of StarCraft gossip is that I once had a game against Jaedong, believe it or not. That will mean absolutely nothing to the vast majority of you, but for a very few of you, I hope that you're suitably impressed. I did lose. Now, let me tell you the rules of Alice's puzzle. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Along thermometer shapes, digits must increase from the bulb end. That's just normal thermometer then. You can see there's this enormous thermometer in the middle of Alice's puzzle, and then sort of 2 little thermometers at the bottom. Blue rectangles, which Alice calls whimsical wind, outside the grid indicate that the first 3 digits in that row column must be unordered, so neither increasing or decreasing. Yellow rectangles, which Alice calls rays of sunshine outside the grid, indicate that the first 3 digits in that row or column must increase from the innermost to the outermost cell. So let's think about what that means. So for the yellow one, we must have increasing towards the edge. So that's interesting because that effectively means that every yellow rectangle is indicative of a little thermometer, with a bulb here extending to the edge of the grid. So there's like another little thermometer going in that direction. So this would have to be something like that. That would be valid because it would be increasing from the bulb end, or increasing along the ray of sunshine, however you want to think about it. Now the blue ones are more complicated. They are indicating there is no order. There must be no order. So if that was a 1 and that was a 6, this could not be a 2, 3, 4 or 5. This would have to be like an 8 or something. And if that was a 4, then this could not be a 5. So it would have one way to think about these, I think, is that they either sort of have to jump up in the middle, so this would have to be greater than the biggest number, this would have to be greater than 6, like an 8 would be fine, or the central number has to be lower than the smallest number, so that a 3 would be valid there. Anyway, that's the rules. Apart from that, all there is to say is do have a go at the puzzle. You do that by clicking the link under the video to play along, and you can play on whichever device takes your fancy. And with that, eyes down for a full house. I mean, let's get cracking. No more bingo today. Now, right, how are we going to start this? Well, what we should probably do, I think, is to take a look at the thermometer in the centre, and let's find the longest strand along it. So this, yeah, it's quite an interesting thermometer shape, actually, if we look at it. So it exits the central 3x3 in one of 4 positions, and then it always does the same thing. Once it exits, it has these sort of 2 branches that come off it every time. So this square is by far the most restricted. And in fact, this square, we can actually write in this square, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we can. Why can we write in the value of this square? Well, if we look at what happens beneath this square on the thermometer, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 cells below this square on the thermometer, and all in the same row. So whatever we put in this square, these 4 cells in row 7 have to be greater than it. So the minimum this can be is a 5, because if this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these all have to be greater than 5, and there are only 4 digits greater than 5. So these 4 squares have to be 6, 7, 8, and 9. And actually we can get the middle, can't we? That must be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These 2 at the edge can't be 6, and these 2 in the middle can't be 9, because they've still got 1 more cell to go along the thermometer. Oh, and now we can write 9 into this box. Remember that 9, when it goes on a thermometer, can only go at the end of the thermometer. It can't go midway along it. Now if we look at this box, oh no, the 9 could go, oh no, the 9 can't go here. No, the 9 can't go here because of that row. So the 9 can only go in this square. That's got to be the 9. These 2 ends of the thermometer are maxed out at 8. So that square is quite restricted though, because that can't be 1, 3 or 5 or 6, 7, 8 or 9. That has to be 2 or 4. And the green thermometer, actually the green thermometer is very interesting as well, because this square is restricted. This can't be a very big number, because if this is a big number, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers on the thermometer that have to be greater than whatever I put in that square. And 9 is impossible. So this square has to be less than 5. So, okay, yeah, so we can actually see that it can't, because it can't be 3, and it definitely can't be 2, because if it's 2, we can't put 1 into both of those squares. Let's undo that, sorry, I don't know what's going on there. Redo. So this square, if these were 1 and 2, this would have to be 4. And in fact, it does have to be 4, because it can't be 5. So this is 4. These are a 1, 3 pair. There's a 5 in one of those 2 cells. That's got to be 2 now. And one of these 2 squares has to be 8, because we can't put a 9 in either of those squares. So there's an 8 in one of those 2 squares, which means neither of those squares can be 8, which creates a 7, 9 pair in that row. So there's a 6, 8 pair now in the box. So these 2 squares must be 5 and 7, I think. That's a bizarre amount of restriction we've managed to generate from this box. Oh, now look, we can go further. Look at this column. We've got to place 6, 7 and 8, but we've got a ray of sunshine. Is that what it was up there? Which means that effectively has to be a vertical thermometer with a bulb here. So that's got to be 6, that's got to be 7, that's got to be 8. These two squares are now forced because they've got to be greater than 3 and less than 7, and they can't be a 6. So they've got to be 4 and 5. 4 here actually tells us the order, look. That 5 fixes the 5, 7 at the bottom. Oh, and this 7, that's got to be greater than 7 now. So that's got to be 8, that's got to be 9. So that's got to be 6, and that's got to be 7. This is going a lot better than yesterday's puzzle, when by this point in the video I'd basically got one number in the grid and it was another 20 minutes before I entered another number. These two squares are 1, 2 and 3 in some order. There's definitely a 2 in one of them. There's got to be a 9 in one of those two cells, look. So maybe this row, we've got to place 1, 3, 4 and 5 in this row. We've got to be a bit careful there though, because we've got blue things outside the grid, whimsical whims. So you can never put a 1 at the edge here, because if you put a 1 at the edge, these cells would necessarily be between 1 and the 9 and the 7, and we would break the box. So there's a 1 in one of those two cells. But that looks fine, doesn't it? Because we've got rays of sunshine at the bottom. So having a 1 in one of those two squares is exactly what we'd expect. The other thing I'm noticing is that we've got overlapping rays of sunshine here. And in fact, overlapping rays of sunshine there as well. In fact, rays of sunshine overlapping everywhere in the corners. So, when I was thinking about it down here, when you've got a ray of sunshine overlapping like this, whatever we put in the central cell has to be of a size that allows there to be 2 numbers greater than it and 2 numbers less than it. So this can never be an extreme number. That's always got to be, in fact I'll put it into all of those corners. That's always got to be 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 therefore. That one can't be 7. That one can't be 7. That one can't be 7. That one can't be 7 either. Didn't see that 7. I'm not sure what we were meant to do with that, or even if it's important, but I don't know. Let's take a look. The next biggest digit that falls out of the central thermometer is going to be this side of the grid. Now, why do I say that? Well, it's because this has got the biggest digit before it exits the central box. So let's have a look at what the options are for along here. We've also got one of the rays of sunshine as well. So we've got effectively a little thermometer coming out this way as well. So that square can't be a 5, look, and it can't. So that's got to be 6, 7 or 8. So that square's got to be 7 or 8. This one can't be 9 because we need to leave room for 9 there. So that square's got to be 8 or 9. This square has got to be, that's less restricted. That can be anything, I think, apart from 9. Oh, no, it can't be 8 either. So that's got to be 5, 6 or 7. So that's got to be, and that can't be 6. So that's got to be 7 or 8. It can't be 9. And this square has to be So that's got to be 3, 5 or 6. Can't be higher than... can it be... No, could it be 7 actually? 7, 8, 9. That would be 6. That would be 5. Is there anything wrong with that? Don't think so. That can be 7 as well. Bobbins. I tried not to say it. I don't want you all shouting bingo. Let's look at this square, shall we? So that's got to be greater than... Actually, no, I should look at this one first. And let's get the restrictions that are applying along this line. So we have got... maybe that one. Sure. And we've got the ray of sunshine again. So this has to be a thermometer. Oh, now actually I've spotted something here. Look, though we've got a 7, 8, 9 options for these two squares. So this square can't be a 7, because if it's a 7, that will be greater than 7 in this square, and that will create 4 squares that need to contain the numbers 7, 8, and 9. So actually this square here has to be less than 7. So that could be 6, it can be 5, but it can't be 4, and it can't be 3, because if it's 3, those two cells would both have to equal 2.5 or something, and that's not possible. So this is a 5 or a 6. This square is a 6. If that's 5, that can be 6, 7, 8 or 9, I think. So these two, so this now can't be 3, so that has to be 4 or 5, because it can't be 6, because that would push this one up too high. This square has to be less than 6. Can't be 4, so that's got to be 3 or 5. This one has to, this one can't be 5, so that one's got to be 3 or 4. So that's beautiful, because now we've got a 3, 4, 5 triple in this box. That's got to be a 6. That's not 6 anymore. That's not 6. 7, 8, 9 triple, so that's not 7. And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This square has to be greater than 7. It's got to be an 8 or a 9. Well, that felt like it was a really big breakthrough, but it's not done a great deal for me. Oh, no. Well, this is interesting. This is interesting because look, I looked before at where 1 could go in this row, and it has to be either here or here because of the whimsical wind clues. But look at this row now, row 3. Where does the 1 go in row 3? Well, it can't go at the edge. We've already talked about that, because if it's at the edge, how do I stop the blue clue being broken? Let's look at this. If this was a 1, how do I stop this being broken? The only way is to make this bigger than whatever I put in here, which would make that an 8. Well, that can't be an 8, because we know it's got to be less than a 6. So there's just no way that the 1s go in either of the perimeter squares. So the 1s have to go in the same columns in these rows. Now that is our old friend the X-Wing. That is lovely. And you can see that's going to allow me to pencil 1s in there. Let me just run through the logic so that any of you new to the channel who haven't come across this pattern get familiar with it. If we look at row 3 and row 7, the 1 in row 3 is locked into exactly one of these two cells. I don't know which one it is, but I know it must be one of those two. Same thing is true here. Must be in one of these two. So when we look at the finished solution to this puzzle, we're either going to see a 1 here, and if we see a 1 here, because the 1 can only go in 2 positions in row 7, we'd have to see a 1 here. So in one possibility is that the finished solution shows a 1 here and a 1 here. Now the only other possibility is that the finished solution will not have a 1 in this square, it will have a 1 in this square, because there's only 2 positions the 1 can go in row 3. But if there's a 1 here, there has to be a 1 there. So the trick is to realise that whichever way round these 1s go doesn't really matter in terms of column 2 and column 8. There's always a 1 in exactly one of these 2 positions. There's always a 1 in exactly one of these 2 positions. So there is never a 1 in any of those yellow squares. That is the restriction the X-wing gives you. Now that means in this box and this box, the 1s get pushed onto the edge. Now that might be interesting. It's very interesting in this box. Oh, it's actually gorgeous in this box. Now why is that? Because we have 2 whimsical wind clues in the possible positions, or affecting the possible positions of the 1s. So let's imagine the 1 was here. If this was a 1, how do we make the whimsical wind clue work? Given that this has to be a 5, 6 or a 7. This square has to be greater than 5. That's the only way you can do it. Now if this is the 1 on the other hand, this square has to be even bigger. It's got to be greater than 6. So whichever ones of these 1s is the real 1, we know that the square adjacent to it in either this position or this position has to be 6 or greater. And therefore, look at this, there is a virtual quadruple in box 6. These 3 cells, combined with whichever one of these 2 has to be greater than 6, form a quadruple on 6, 7, 8 and 9. So that square can't possibly be a 6 or a 7. That has to be a 5. That has to be a 3. That's a 5. That's a 4. That's a 3. 4 in one of those 2 squares. And we can repeat the trick. The 4 can't go there. If the 4 goes here, there's only 2 possibilities now. 1 breaks immediately if we try and put the 1 there. Now this is an increasing sequence. That's not allowed, so the 1 can't go here. But once the 1 isn't here, it has to go here and be next to a 6, 7, 8 or 9. So that square's got to be a 2 to complete the box, and that breaks as well. So there is no way the 4 goes there. The 4 must go here. The 1 must move up. This has to be a 6, 7, 8 or 9. This must be the 2. And what does that tell us? Surely we can go further. 1, yeah, we get a 1 over there, look. There's a 2 in one of those 2 cells. That's got to be a 7, 8 or 9. Can't be a 6 because of that one. And okay. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm meant to do now. That one can't be a 5, look. And so that one can't be a 5. Actually, there's a 6 there as well. So maybe these clues are, this one especially, that must be restricted because, yeah, look. This cell has to be less than 4 because of the ray of sunshine clue. But it can't be a 2, so that square's a 1 or a 3. This square has to be less than 4 and can't be a 3, so that's a 1 or a 2. This square has to be less than 6, but can't be a 3 or a 5, so that's a 1, 2 or a 4. This square is less than 6 but can't be a 2. So this has to be 1, 3 or 5. 1, 3, 4, 5. So that square's quite interesting, and that can't be a 1 or a 4. That's just a 3 or a 5. And this has to be 3, 4 or 5 because it can't be a 1. Nearly a quintuple there. Let's keep having a look at these inner cells of the these cross things. So this square has to be less than 5 but can't be 4. That can only be 1, 2 or 3. That one maybe? Oh, yeah, that one's not bad. That's got to be less than 5 but can't be 3 or 4. That's got to be 1 or 2. This has got to be less than 6 but can't be 3 or 5. That's 1, 2 or 4 again. And this one is less than 6 but can't be 2, 4 or 5. That's 1 or 3. That's quite cool because now this square can't be 3. If that square's 3, this square has to be less than 3, so it has to be 1, and now that's got no value. So this isn't 3. Now we can just place a 3 in row 8, because where does the 3 go? The 3 can't go at the edge because it needs to be, whatever we put in the 2 yellow cells has to be greater than whatever we put in those 2 squares. So this has a minimum value of 3, so this has to be at least 4. So the only place the 3 can go now is there. That's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 2. That can't be 1 anymore. 3, 5 pair here, so that's got to be a 4. 4 in one of those 2 cells at the top. That one can't be a 3 because of the 3 down here, look. Oh, and this one being a 2 means that one's got to be a 1. That can't be a 1 now. There's a 1 in one of those 2 cells. Whoa, that went a bit skew-if, but... now look, we can use the blue clue to disambiguate this. If we put a 3 here, that has to be a 5, and that's going to be an ascending sequence. So that's a 5, that's a 3, that's a 1. That can't be a 2 because of the 2 over here. That one now can't be a 3, look, because of the 3 down there. The 2 here means that's a 2, so this square's got to be 7, 8 or 9. So this square here's got to be... Oh, in fact, look, if we look here, I can place this as a 1 by Sudoku. Look, we've got 1s in those positions, so this is the only valid position for a 1 in the box. So we need 4, 6 and 8. Oh, we need 4, 6 and 8 into these 3 positions. Well, 4 can only go here because of Sudoku. We've got 2 4s there. These 2 squares are a 6, 8 pair. And, we can't use the rays of sunshine to disambiguate them, which is unfortunate. This can't be a 4 now. So that's got to be 5 or 6. So this has got to be greater than 5, but can't be 8. That's not very useful. That's got to be 6, 7 or 9, therefore. Oh, here's some more logic. Here is some more logic. This is it's a brilliant puzzle, this. Keeps surprising me. It's very unusual logic for a thermo. But look along here now. Where does the 8 go? The 8 can't go there because of that 8. So the 8s have got to go in those squares where they marry up with the 8s in row 8. So we've got another X-wing. Let me use red. So the 8s are locked into one of 2 positions in row 2, one of 2 positions in row 8. So I can eliminate 8 for exactly the same reasons we discussed earlier with the 1s in all of those yellow cells. Now why does that matter? Look at this one. This square's got to be, can't be an 8, so it's got to be a 9. That can't be a 9. Well, that can't be a 9 now, but it also can't be an 8 because of the X-wing. That's got to be a 7. That's an 8 over there. There's a, yeah, look, 7s are forced upwards into that square, where I've pencil marked the 4, so that, trusting my pencil mark, that gives me a 4 here. 4 up there now. This square must be a 2. That's a 3. 3 and 1 at the bottom. That square's a 2. That's got to be a 1 and a 9. Now we can complete this column. Look, we've got an 8-9 pair. That's got to be a 5. These squares have got to be 6, 8 and 9. Don't know the order yet. No, genuinely, and the blue thing, whatever it's called, doesn't help me. That one's okay. This square here, is that helpful? What do I need along here? I need 5, 6 and 8, I think. So that's got to be 5, 6 or 8. That's got to be 5, 6 or 8. Now that one can't be 5 because that's going to force this not to be ascending. So that's got to be a 6, 8. There's a 6, 8 pair now in that column. So we need 2, 3 and 7 to complete the column. The 2 here gives me a 2 down at the bottom. So this is a 3, 7 pair which we can fill in. That means that's not a 7. This 7 fixes that that's an 8. Look, that fixes that that's a 6. That's an 8. That's a 6. That one is not a 6. Ah, that's a 5 now. So that's a 9. It's all starting to come together, I think. That one's an 8 over here. Neither of those squares can be a 6. These 2 squares have got to be 6 and 7, and we can't resolve it, but never mind. What else can we do here? This 8 is fixing the 9 on the thermometer. This square must be fillable. That's a 3. These 2 squares have got to be 5 and 6, is that? That's resolvable. And it's not breaking the blue clue. That's good. The 9 fixes the 9 and the 8 at the bottom. Oh, look at this. So we're left with a pattern in the middle that we can't resolve. But look at the 6, 7 down at the bottom here. The blue clue is going to tell us the direction of this. We mustn't create an ascending sequence. So that's a 7. That's a 6. That fixes 7, 6. That should unwind the rest of it, and it does. Gorgeous puzzle. Yes. Oh, lovely. I hope you enjoyed that. I really thought that was absolutely beautiful. What an idea as well to construct this thing out of a thermonuclear thing. I think I'm going to call this video Chernobyl Sudoku. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Do come back later on for another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.